And now to thing three for today's episode of Washington in Focus. It is the Interstate Bridge Replacement Project to tear down the bridges over the Columbia River between Washington and Oregon and replace them with a brand new bridge that includes light rail and bike lanes. And it has increased, you'll be surprised, in its amount, and the timeline for the complete build out now could be something like 20 years. And we've also learned this week that the plan is now to do this in phases, but of course the tolls are going to start right away. I spoke to Representative John Lee, Republican from Vancouver. He's been part of the team of folks who've been kind of working on design, or at least gets to sit in on the meetings. I don't know how much input he gets, but he tries. He's not a fan of the current design. He says they really don't need to put trains on the bridge between Portland and Vancouver because they don't even have that many transit riders as it is right now. And the trains are currently what's really ballooning the cost. He says the trains, he believes as well, are nothing more than a bailout for Portland's TriMet system, which he tells me is broke.
This is a light rail project in search of a bridge. As we have discussed before, Portland's TriMet is going bankrupt. They need a bailout, and if they can get billions of federal money, it helps them delay the inevitable. Last night at C-Tran, they also got a briefing on ridership. C-Tran, Clark Transportation Bus Company, is the only transit over the Columbia River into Portland, and they told the board 2,200 people a day. In reality, that's 2,200 boardings, and that is the two bridges, I-5 and I-205. On the I-5 corridor, it's about 1,500 boardings, which means they're taking about 750 people out of their cars because a person will board twice a day, once in the morning going to work and once in the evening coming back. So with 750 people a day, my gosh, anybody with common sense says you support that with 3 or 4 buses. In the morning, 3 or 4 buses. In the evening, you got it. And if you need a double articulated bus, like Sound Transit has for some of their express service in Seattle, hey, great. You put the articulated double buses that hold 100 people a pop, and you run those.
Now, the overall project cost estimate is now at roughly $14.4 billion. And phase one, which deals mostly with the bridge work and extending light rail to a waterfront station on the Vancouver side, that's going to be about $7 billion. But what's interesting and what Representative Lee is concerned about is the platform on the Vancouver waterfront side, which initially was part of that phase one. It won't have the rail yet. It won't have the trains, but it'll be the platform for the station there. It's going to be 90 feet above ground. That's the current design. So it will require an extensive stairwell system, elevators, of course, ramps. You can just imagine what they're going to have to do. And we're talking about 90 feet above Mother Earth. So that's going to be significant. He's concerned about that. And then the roughly $2 billion price tag that we had to bring light rail to the Vancouver waterfront across the new bridge went from $2 billion to $3.5 billion, we learned this week. And the feds haven't even signed off on their part of funding for a project with light rail across the bridge. Of course, former President Biden was a big fan of all these light rail projects, and they got lots of money. President Trump, not so much a fan of these gigantic projects that include light rail. Now, you can contrast what we're considering doing here for the Interstate Bridge project between Oregon and Washington with a project that just got the green light from the feds and an agreement for funding between Ohio and Kentucky. Design officials there aren't putting any trains on their new bridge. They're not putting any bike lanes in it. They're just doing a bridge with a bunch of general purpose lanes. And Representative Lee said, there's no reason we need to do what we're doing. And he pushes back on supporters of the current design with the trains who've said, we have to have the trains or we can't get the federal money.
Bottom line, zero need. The program has claimed we must get have high capacity transit in order to get federal funding. That's part of the lie they tell, half truth, whatever, is that right now, today, as we speak, Cincinnati, Ohio, and Northern Kentucky are building a bridge that was competing for the same money as the IBR is. They're building a 10-lane bridge, 5 in each direction, over the Ohio River, connecting from Northern Kentucky into Cincinnati, the Brent Spence Bridge. It competed and got about 1.6 billion in federal money. Zero transit component on it. So the IBR is telling a misnomer on we have to have it. No, you don't need it, and the 2.1 billion we've already gotten did not require from the feds did not require transit as a component of it. The only federal money that's now in doubt is the capital investment grant, which the feds will only pay half at most of the capital cost of a transit. So if in this instance it's $2 billion for the transit component, the feds will give you 1 billion and the two states have to come up with the remaining billion. Now today, with the new 3.5 billion, oh, feds, will you give us half of that? Okay, 1.75 billion slush fund, none of which is needed from a rider or capacity standpoint.
So now the updated timeline is for construction to potentially begin in 2028, and there will be tolls right away. As they build the new bridge, you're going to be told on the old bridge. They haven't set that amount. They've talked about sort of a rolling thing based on, traffic volumes, time of day, anywhere from about $1.50 up to $4.50. So that's going to be interesting. But the other unknown is driver behavior. You recall when the State Route 520 bridge opened, people avoided that like the plague, at least initially, and took I-90 across Lake Washington to avoid those tolls on the Evergreen Point floating bridge. And they didn't make as much money as they projected and ultimately had to raise the tolls and likely extend them forevermore. So we've got 205 as an option between Southwest Washington and the Oregon side. And a lot of people take that to avoid the congestion on I-5 across the Columbia River anyway. Will more people just do that? What will that do to 205 traffic? So there's so many unknowns here. And Representative Lee suggests they really need to just scale this thing way back, take the trains and bike lanes off it, do something like this other project. And he believes that's going to be a lot better for taxpayers and can get done a heck of a lot faster than potentially not being done with this until 2045. So that is it for today's episode of Washington in Focus Daily for this Thursday, April the 23rd of 2026. As always, thanks for watching.